Hello, my name is Omar Elizondo, and I want to thank you for watching my video. The question I am curious about is, should teaching institutions reevaluate the current learning management system? In almost all learning systems throughout education, there's some type of learning management system. In layman's terms, this means that almost every institution or every school district, or university has a program that they utilize mainly to get information out to the students. So all learning in some form is going to be occurring through these learning management systems. These are the center of grading, attendance, putting up videos, whether they be personal videos or YouTube videos, and also act as a facilitation tool between the instructors and the students. If you're a student at UTRGV, the learning management system that we use is Blackboard. Now, if you really think about your learning management system or Blackboard or whichever one it may be, you interact with that daily, especially once you become a college student. Public school students have a learning management system as well that they interact with, but often they don't interact with it the way they should. So when students come into the university, they learn very quickly that they should interact with Blackboard more frequently. But you have to understand, from a student's perspective, it's simply a source of getting the PowerPoints, maybe taking a quiz. And as an instructor, sometimes that's the same perception as well. I will simply use it as a hub to give documents to my students. But we can do a better job and we can use it more effectively. Now, what the goal really is to increase engagement between the student and the learner. And then that way, the learning management system is not simply a system for grading and videos and document distribution, but it's a system that can actually be used to support the students and the instructors so that there's more feedback that's occurring between instructors and students, and the class can be more engaging through the learning management system. So, as I said, the issue is, should institutions reevaluate the current learning management system that they're using and maybe transition to a newer or maybe more modern learning management system that is user-friendly, cost-effective, and increases engagement? So, as I said, the current learning management system that is used at UTRGV is Blackboard. Blackboard, like any learning management system, requires you to learn how to use it. Like any website, like any tool, you have to learn how to use it. And depending on who you ask, some people will say they love it. Some people will say they don't. As a faculty member and a student for the university, it is a mixed bag. I will oftentimes find instructors providing feedback to each other and saying, oh, did you know you could do this? Did you know you could do that? Oh, I didn't know that. So they are constantly trying to help each other and assist each other with how to actually use Blackboard, because instructors want to be good instructors and help their students. If you ask students, for many, when they reach the university, Blackboard sometimes is the first interaction they have with a learning management system. They have very little interaction with it. Some of the learning management systems that they use in public schools differ greatly. And additionally, students who have experience with Blackboard at the public school level, they may be students who are using it because they're taking collegiate courses. These are your dual enrollment courses, for example. But even that, they don't interact with the tool that well. So it's something that institutions pay for. It may not be used effectively, and our perceptions as faculty and students differ because of how we see the value in this learning management system. So maybe we should reevaluate what we're currently using and transition to something else. So as we all know, you've heard this over and over for the past couple of years, COVID changed everything, right? And while COVID as a virus was horrible, the pandemic forced education to adapt, and it exposed weaknesses in education. For many people, they transitioned to whatever they could in order to communicate with their students. Zoom was one of the first, not the first, but one of the commonly used tools for communication. And even in the beginning of that, it was difficult to get students to sign in. It was difficult to get them to know how to use the tools, to turn on their camera, to learn the etiquette of that tool. The pandemic is still occurring now, and even now we're still having to teach students how to use that tool. Now, Zoom is not a learning management system, but I'm using it as an example that even in the transition from from in-person to online, we had to learn this new tool. So the same is going to be said for a learning management system. So when students have to transition from public education to the universities, and they have a learning management system similar to Blackboard, they have to learn how to do that too. So what this means is, as we are kind of nearing the end of the pandemic, we're going to continue to use Zoom. We're going to continue to use learning management system, but perhaps we want to take advantage of this educational technology opportunities to actually implement a fully functional, user-friendly, and engaging learning management system that can allow us to teach in person, online, or in a hybrid course. So there's some affordances that are going to come with learning management systems, right? These are the things you want to look out for when it comes to a learning management system. They have to be pedagogical, social, and technical. So let's go into some of these specifics. For pedagogical, I'm going to literally read the definitions because that's why we want to start. It's the characteristics of technology-enhanced learning environments that determine whether and how users can implement learning activities in a given educational setting for a target group. What this means is that whatever tools are available within that learning management system are the tools that can be used by the students to produce quizzes, videos for interaction. Next is social affordance, which refers to the properties that promote social interaction amongst its users. This is also important. We want tools in our learning management system that allows people to create a dialogue, provide feedback, ask questions, and for it to be very user-friendly and easy to access. The last is technical affordance, which is the usability of the environment for learning and task accomplishment. This is pretty much how the learning management system is set up. How is it easy to get to these tools? So for example, one learning management system, I'll go over a couple later, one learning management system might be able to provide feedback in 2 clicks. Another learning management system, you can also provide feedback, but it takes 10 clicks to get to that point. Which one of those it allows for better technical affordance? Well, if you want to give feedback, you want to give it quick. You want to be able to get in and out and interact with that resource, that paper, that PowerPoint quickly without having to have multiple clicks. So think about that. That's pretty much what technical affordance is. So essentially, this is saying, when you look at a learning management system, you can't just say this one is better than that. You want to look at the overall holistic perspective of it. And that holistic perspective is the affordances. Does that learning management system have these affordances? And I want to push for Google Classroom. So I'm kind of giving a lot of evidence here. So there's a lot of text here. Let's kind of go through it one bullet point at a time. And there's text because I want to use quotations from these papers. Google Classroom is a learning management system. It's a learning management system that is predominantly used by many public school institutions. So that means that the learning part of Google Classroom is occurring earlier in a student's educational life. So Google Classroom is a blended learning platform. You can use this predominantly for online, in-person, or hybrid. It has an instructional interface and it has options for delivering and tracking assignments, just like almost any LMS. Communication with the entire course or individuals. You can do that through announcements, email, and push notifications. That's kind of a basic requirement for an LMS, but Google does this, right? Google is supported with a high degree of technical and social affordances. The reason for this is because you can get in and out of Google resources very quickly. You can link them very quickly. You can share very quickly through email, through notifications, and it will usually link to social medias if you feel that's important. And then social affordances, that's pretty much the bread and butter of Google itself. It's people interacting, people sharing. And so the social affordances allow for you to get feedback, receive feedback, share documents, things like that pretty quickly. One of the best things is Google owns YouTube. So YouTube is one of the most, if not the used website on the internet. Maybe probably not the most used, but it's one of the most used websites. And there's so many resources on there. So because of that, there's that interconnection relationship between Google Classroom and YouTube, where students can record themselves, they can provide audio feedback, recording feedback, upload it to YouTube, and share it with each other very quickly and easily. The cost effectiveness of Google Classroom needs to be underlined, as there is no additional cost needed to create the e-learning resource. It's free. Google Classroom is free for all users. So that means there's no cost to the instructor to use this. That's wonderful, because if it's free, that means there's more and more instructors who can try it out. They can test it. We can see what works, what doesn't work, and maybe we want to transition to this learning management system. It is scalable, and for large and repeating classes, this is wonderful. Instructors do want to use this as much as they can, because every single year, every single semester, you just want to reuse your class and make those small modifications rather than having to start from scratch. And it supports students in technical aspect by being mobile friendly, and many students preferred mobile phones over laptops. I'm a laptop guy, but I'm also nearing 40 years old. What does the current generation want? Well, the research, whether mobile phone education is beneficial or not, I'm not going to discuss that. But that is the preference for a lot of students. They want to be able to get information quickly on their phone. Students should not be reading novels or taking exams on their phone, but maybe for those quick comments, for those quick communications, those technical and social affordances, maybe we want to actually consider that, so that way students can communicate quickly through the phone. Lastly, students probably have phones. They may not have internet at their home. So that's something that we can use to be able to communicate with students through their phone, through the resources they have. Some additional information I found in this research is, as I said, sending and receiving quality feedback. Feedback needs to be clear, concise, grammatically edited, time-stamped, and even video feedback is eligible. Sorry for that typo. So when you provide feedback on a Google Doc, on a presentation, on anything, it's going to be typed out. It's going to be typed out the way you typed it. But remember, you can get grammatical editing, so that way you can fix any typos in your comment. It'll be timestamped, so you know when I said it, but I can also know when you submitted documents, when you commented. And video feedback is also available, because you can click a button and provide a short 30-second, maybe even 2-minute feedback on your phone or on your computer. That's a wonderful resource that you can use. Accessibility options. Sometimes we forget that there are students that need a little bit of assistance. So when you record videos, a lot of technology is available for audio transcription through AI incorporation. So the text will relatively understand what you're saying and be able to provide a transcription. You can also convert that to audio files, which are smaller. They take up less speed. They can be uploaded for MP3s or podcasts. So that way students can listen to your lecture, to the information you're getting across to them in a condensed form that occupies less space. Even better, you can even hear it at a 1.25x speed, which doesn't really sacrifice the quality, but it helps the lecture go by at least 25% faster. So you're giving more people opportunities just with feedback, videos, feedback videos, as well as alternatives to how they want to take in the information you're giving them. So whenever you introduce anything new, you're going to get some resistance, right? This is a fact of life, right? Most people like the way they use things. They don't want change, and change doesn't always necessarily mean that it's good. Sometimes you lose usability, but there's going to be resistance, and that's to be expected. But one of the major resistances that you're going to have is that people they just don't want to change. They don't want to make those changes. But there's also the aggravation that comes with it, because now I have to focus more time into learning this new skill, and that creates aggression. It gets people to become aggressive. They look for other peers that agree with them, so that way they can say, I hate this resource, you hate this resource, let's hate it together. And we're not growing and developing from that. So you're going to get resistance when you transition to a new LMS. So one of the things you want to do is take a look at what people are saying and see how you can remedy that. If you look at the third bullet point, I put required steps. One LMS often used in Blackboard is Blackboard. One version, 6.3, required 12 distinct steps per student to provide formative feedback. That can be a frustration when a new LMS is adding more barriers to getting my work done. When I have 60 papers I need to read and evaluate, it's extremely frustrating when I have to click on this, click on this, click on this, click on this, just to get to it. It's extremely frustrating. Another issue that increases resistance is security. If you're dealing with student information, it needs to be secure. And so even though there's going to be security in these LMSs, you want the security that can flow very quickly. Sometimes it becomes very encumbered when you have to log in, sign in, get a code from your cell phone, put in that code, click this, click that, click this. It becomes very aggravating, and that adds to the resistance of the LMS. So essentially what you're fighting is time and resources, because time is going to be eaten up learning this new LMS, this new information. But as I said, much of that can be outsourced because much of the public schools are already using Google Classroom. And then as for resources, no additional resources are really needed for this other than training for faculty and staff, as well as some students. So argument analysis, I needed to compare both sides of this. So some people are going to say in-person teaching is better. And other people are going to say, well, we need to transition to an online ecosystem. The pandemic showed us that. The great thing about Google Classroom is you don't have to do either. With Google Classroom, it's available online as well as almost any LMS, but it's not going to be useful in person, because in person is going to be a different form of instruction. So this allows you to have hybrid learning, where you can still have your in-person teaching, but you can easily tell students, there's a video I put up online, I want you to watch it. And they can do that in the class, they can do that online. You can create a hybrid course. And that's one of the benefits of Google Classroom, because it's going to allow you to implement more of a hybrid approach versus traditional online or traditional in person. So an educational LMS is constantly fighting the entirety of the internet. There's so many websites that students are going to be dragged to because they're fun. They show videos, whether it's Reddit or Twitter or YouTube or some obscure website that I don't know about. There eventually is going to be a new website that is drawing students. So an effective educational LMS is going to allow for students to be able to interact with their educational aspect quickly, effectively, without the encumbered burden. Because if it's difficult to connect to your educational LMS, students are always going to be looking at, well, I can go watch a video, that looks fun, look at that meme. So you really want a fully functional, efficient LMS so that students will take the time to focus on their education at that moment, because it is the educational LMS versus the entire internet. Next is technology doesn't replace in-person experiences, and technology enhances the in-person experiences. So like any tool, people are going to be resistant to it. Like, we should not always be relying on technology. We need to step away from that, and we need to be more in person. I get that. That makes a lot of sense. But technology can also enhance our personal experience. I'll give you a great example. One teacher I know of decided to use technology as their homework. And what I mean by that is, instead of giving students assignments where they have to go read or do a whole bunch of work, that teacher gave an example. And that teacher said, I want you to think about the mitochondria. Think about it. Now go home and take a picture of something that reminds you of the mitochondria. And a lot of students took pictures of batteries. One student took a picture of their car engine. If you don't know what the mitochondria is, it's what most people remember as the powerhouse of the cell. It's what makes power in a cell. So students were able to take a picture and upload it to their LMS. And so that's a way to use technology to enhance the in-person experience. The next day, the teacher went over those pictures and said, oh, this is very interesting, real world connection. They used technology, they took a picture of something, very open-ended. The students were given the autonomy to teach, they were given the autonomy to take what they thought was an example of mitochondria and then teach it to the class. It was really, really wonderful. And then cost, right? Any university or any educational system is going to say, well, what's the cost? Well, the cost of Google Classroom is free. There's security embedded in it. It's user-friendly, it's fast, and it's ubiquitous. So it saves a lot of money if you want to transition to that online platform. So suggestions for solving this problem, right? So how can we do this? Well, you definitely need to do a needs assessment with the faculty first. Like, what do they need? What is it that they're looking for? Are they looking for a new LMS? Do they want this? Because there's no point in doing any of this if, one, you're giving them something they don't want, and two, you're not going to get the support from the faculty. So ask them who's interested in this. Next, there's a 57-point criteria for choosing the best LMS in one of the papers I have in my references. This is a great resource, 57 points. It allows you to determine which LMS, if you're comparing different LMSs, which one is more ideal and a best fit for your institution. Third, you're going to want to neutralize any resistance from the faculty that you may get. You're going to get some resistance, and if you can learn a little bit about some neutralization techniques, you'll be able to not squash that, but lessen it, and then maybe bring more people on board to trying this new LMS. And then last, you've got to provide a lot of training, especially in the beginning. You got to provide a lot of training in person or online, but you might want to start with small cohorts, maybe a cohort of one subject, one class, or one grade level, or anyone who's interested in that. I think a good idea for UTRGV would be to ask for anybody who wants to participate and maybe start with the lower level courses or introductory courses. So that way the students can transition to a new learning management system with faculty who want to support this transition, are motivated to that transition, as well as if you use Google Classroom, it eases it because they should have had that in their public school institutions, and it's now coming into the university system. And you start small and you build out and you try to get as many people to adopt it as possible. So in essence, my recommendation would be to, yes, reconsider and reevaluate the learning management system that is used at your current institution. There's some out there that are cheap. There's some out there that are free. And it's not something you can do overnight, but it is something that you can do within a year and maybe bring some people on board, but you got to support them. You got to provide trainings. You got to provide resources for them. And I think you can get some really interesting results when you change your learning management system. Here are my references. I really appreciate you all watching my video, and I really hope that this is an interesting concept for anybody. I personally am going to start to introduce this at UTRGV, and I really hope it's a success. So with that, I really want to thank you for watching my video once again. You all have a great day, and that's it. Thanks.